What's up, everyone? Thanks for tuning into my channel, Jace's Own World. We got a good one today. This video is going to be about installing the Wavetrac LSD. I'm on my way over to my buddy's house and we are going to be tackling that job today. I'm super excited about that because I've been wanting this LSD for years, guys. Years. And when my engine seized and I knew I was going to be replacing the motor and taking everything out along with the transmission, I knew it was the perfect opportunity to put this Wavetrac LSD into the transmission. Without further ado, let's get right into the video right now. Took the sensor off, and then this piece, which was right here. Take those both off right there. Let's go here. A little indent right here. That comes out just like that. No beans. Well, this has been the most frustrating part about taking apart the transmission. I got all the bolts taken off, as you saw. There was one hidden bolt on the opposite side, which I got. I got all the inside bolts of the inside of the bell housing off, and I just could not get this thing apart. It was just being ridiculous. So I noticed that there was, here, let me show you here. Around the transmission here, around where the two parts of the transmission meet, it's sealed from the factory with a sealant. And so it just makes it extra hard to separate both pieces, even with all the bolts off, obviously, because the sealant's been on there. And after, you know, almost 180,000 miles of use with this transmission, there's something, it's just bound to be very sealed, right? So I was banging on the top of this guy forever, and just, it wasn't doing nothing. So I was trying to find a mounting point for for a little pry bar. Actually, this is a pretty large one here in comparison. That one, and I was using this one, which is much smaller, but I decided to go with the large one. And I was trying to find something to basically grab onto with the pry bar and pry really hard, like boom, boom, like really fast, like and hard, like pries. But there wasn't really much around to be seen. But I finally got it on this side, and I'll show you right here. If you have the transmission on this side with this part facing up, and then you got this part facing you, you'll find this little piece right here, this little piece, and it's perfect to basically boom, or you just kind of, you know, do whatever, boom, 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 and eventually you'll pop it up, as you can see here. Boom. You'll just have to do some quick movements like that. This is a perfect anchoring point right here. So let's get to removing this top part of the transmission, because this honestly has been frustrating me for a good almost hour and a half, 2 hours now. It's been pretty frustrating. But now that I finally got it loose, I think I'll do some banging. I might have to apply some heat to this, but hopefully not. But hopefully I'll just be able to get this off right now. So let's get that going. Oh my gosh, it just came up. Just like that. Voila. That's what it looks like on the inside. That is pretty cool, guys. That's what the 6-speed manual transmission looks like on the inside there. This is the open diff, which I will be replacing, and this is the inside here. Now, as you can see here, I want to inspect all this because it's super clean in here. Like, honestly, very, very, very clean in here, guys. Almost 180,000 miles on this transmission, and it looks really clean in here. That's pretty awesome. That's good to know. And the reason why is because I have actually replaced my transmission fluid pretty frequently on my car. I mean, I've done 6 clutch jobs on this car, and with each clutch job I've had to drain the old transmission fluid and then fill it with brand new fluid. I've always used very, very high end fluid, either Motul or Redline or something like that. And so, you know, 180,000 miles almost on the car. I've done it 6 times. So give or take every 30,000 miles, the transmission fluid has been drained and filled into this transmission. So that is why it looks so dang clean. I love that. And I'm looking at the gears here, and everything looks just mint, guys. Like, it just looks really, really clean and good in here. So I'm super stoked about that. Next, I'm going to be taking apart all of these gears here. And I think the best way that I'm going to go about this is, firstly, I'm going to get a second person to help me with the job. But also I'm going to take pictures of where all these little parts go, because with time you're just going to forget where everything goes. So take pictures if you're doing this job, and make sure that you know exactly where everything goes when it's time to put it there. I'm looking at this too. It's got the plastic ends here, and it's got the steel forks. Just this part is brass though, which is weird. This part isn't brass, but this part is. So this transmission has never been opened. Anyways, let's get to the part where I take off these gears. Just tip it or what?
So this whole thing, we'll just go end over.
This is the watch yourself.
Okay, ready? Oh, Nelly. Good thing you have photos.
Yeah.
Okay, so this.
We're doing the drilling part. So we did, what did we start with again?
7:30 seconds. Yeah.
7:30. We started with the 7:30 seconds drill bits, drilling into these rivets right here. And then we ended up with the 3/8.
That's right.
Yeah. And then we ended up with the 3/8. And you don't really want to go any larger than 3/8 because you want to put that through that hole right there. It goes through the hole just fine, but anything larger, you're gonna, if you're off any little bit, you're gonna be cutting right into the ring gear, and you do not want to do that. So we're just gonna continue with that and get all these rivets. We also, after that, we just chisel it off. So I'll show you in a little bit. We are set. It's crazy. It's only 40. It's crazy. We are at the point of putting the Wavetrac LSD into the transmission. We've installed the races, and originally when we were taking out the races, I accidentally messed up this part. It's part O2Q409208, and yeah, as you can see, that's a pile of crap, so I had to buy a new one, and that's in this part right here. But when we were putting the Wavetrac LSD in to the slot, as you can see, and spinning it to find out how much we needed to grind off of this case so that the LSD wasn't binding or anything, we originally spun it and we didn't really find any like marks, and so we ground off a little bit of this part right here originally, and then we put this back in and we put the other half on it and put all the bolts in there, you know, and did that, and the LSD was not spinning. It was like super tight, and so I was wondering, did we not put the races in far enough? something like that. So what I did is I took my race install tool here and I pounded them in as hard as I could until they stopped. And you will find a stopping point on the races. So when you're doing this job, make sure that you're putting the races in all the way. It will come to a stopping point. All right. So I did that on both cases. On this side, it's right here. On the other end, and then I put it back together, bolted it down, and the Wavetrac was still like super tight. It was bound up and we didn't know what was going on. Did we do something wrong? So I inspected the races and the bearings to make sure that they were the right races with the bearings, because this race and the race inside here, they are slightly off. They're not exactly the same. Same with the bearings. They have different part numbers, so you got to make sure that you're putting them in the right spot. And we just couldn't figure out what was going on, because when I did that, all of the bearings are in the right spot. The races were matching up with the bearing. And so I was like, man, I don't know what's going on. And so we put the Wavetrac LSD back in there. And then we inspected the Wavetrac LSD. And what we were originally looking for on the LSD, when we spun it in here, when this was here, because before we ground off anything, we put the Wavetrac inside the LSD and we spun it to see where it was binding, and we didn't find any markings. We were looking for markings like right here, and we didn't find any markings. And so I was like, that's just so weird, you know? So we ground it off a little bit, but when we put it back together, like I said, the LSD, it's supposed to spin in there freely, which I'll show you here in a minute when the other case is back on here. It wasn't spinning at all. And when I put the bolts back on there, it was literally not spinning at all. I would take my axle and put it in there and try to spin it, and it didn't spin at all. So I was like, what the heck? So yeah, so everything else was inspected. So the only thing we could think of is we just didn't grind this part down enough. And so we decided to grind it down even more. As you can see, it's ground down pretty good. There's no more notch right here. Like from the factory, there's a little notch. We ground all that down. And so what I'm going to show you right now is I'm going to put it all back together and put the case on, put the bolts on. And what you're going to want is a freely spinning LSD, Wavetrac LSD in there. And so if it's not freely spinning, then there's something binding up. Check your washers, check your races, make sure they're the ones in the right spot on both the Wavetrac and in the transmission cases. And then if it's still binding, then check this. So I'll show you right now what we did. But before that, let me just throw this in the transmission so you can see. Just set it in there. Spinning pretty good, right? Spinning really freely. There's no binding. You can't hear any metal versus metal or anything. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put the transfer case on here, and I'm going to put the bolts on there, and I'll show you what it's supposed to do so that you know that there is nothing binding. All right, so the LSD is in there, spinning freely. Let's get the other half of the transmission case onto here. Get the bolts on there and go that route. Sits in there just fine. It spins, and I'll show you a close-up of that so that you can actually see it spinning. But let me get all these bolts in there. All right, I got all of them bolted down, as you can see. Now, what you'll want to do next is make sure that the LSD is spinning freely. See that? Spinning freely. You know it's not binding up with anything. Listen for sounds. which I do hear a sound. So I'm gonna have to take it back apart and see where it's binding, if it's binding on anything. Okay, one thing I did that I think is important and you should do if you're doing this job too, before I put the Wavetrac LSD in here and put the other casing on top and bolted it together with the bolts and spun it, I put some blue paint right here because I wanted to make sure that when I install everything and I bolt the other case up and I spin the LSD in place, that I come back to this point and I want to make sure that I have ground off everything I need to grind. And so with the paint, you can definitely see if there was anything binding up or anything. And I just did it and there's nothing binding up right here. So that's a really good sign. That means I don't have to grind anymore. So now I can get back to installing everything back together and using the dial indicator. All right, once everything is bolted up, you're going to spin the LSD. Make sure that it's spinning. I like to take the axle that it belongs in, make sure that's stopped. Put the axle in, and that way you can visually see and hear for anything. I don't hear any binding or grinding or anything. So you want to spin it, I don't know, you know, a little bit this way, like 5 cycles or something. Then you want to spin it the other way, like 5 cycles or turns. And that way it's settled in. Then from here, you can remove your axle, hang it off your bench. Just make sure that it doesn't fall. Here, let me get a better angle here. That's a better angle. Hang it off your bench, the LSD side, and you can hold it here and go from underneath and get your fingers up inside, and you're gonna hear that. So that is the play. You're gonna want to make sure that the LSD is spinning, that there is some play before you move on to the dial indicator part. And that play is going to be what the dial indicator indicates, and whatever it indicates, that's the shim that you're going to use. So right now I'm going to grab my dial indicator and do this part and go from there. Okay, this was fun. I've never used a dial indicator in my life, so it took me a while to figure this thing out. Bought this dial indicator online, and you just kind of have to mess with it. It's been a little bit of me just figuring it out, but I finally got it. So what I started with is I got a clamp here, and I clamped the base on onto this part right here. So that's settled. And then you have your dial indicator here, and it's clamped in right here and all that stuff. Then you have it sitting on top of one of the spots. There's multiple spots you can fixate it to on the differential. And then you basically, you don't want to start at 0, and you want to figure out what the preload on the O2Q transmission for a MK7 GTI is, and the preload on this transmission is 0.25 millimeters. So you're going to want to write that down, remember that, do something with that. That's the preload that you're going to set. And what you're going to want to do from here, as you can see, mine is at 90 right there, and you're going to want to press up from underneath here. Put your hand underneath there and just go like that. And whatever that is, you're going to add 0.25 to that, and that is going to be the total shim that you're going to need to put inside the transmission. So I am going to figure this out right now and get to that. Okay guys, so when you pick up your dial indicator, you're going to want to pay attention to these numbers right here because they differ. And so this dial indicator actually shows every single notch, every single one of these, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. That is 1/1000th of an inch. And 1/1000th of an inch converted to millimeters is 0.0254. So since we had 30 of those 1/1000th of an inches, I multiply 0.0254 by 30, and that gave me about 0.76 millimeters. That 0.76 millimeters added to a preload of 0.25 millimeters equals 1.01 millimeters total. If I want to round it up to 0.80 millimeters and add a 0.25 millimeter preload to it, that goes to a 1.05 millimeter total. And so I'm going to try to find a shim that is 1.01 to 1.05 millimeters thick, and that will be the shim that I will put in place. All right, we got the gears in. Everything is all settled. That was fun. It wasn't too bad, but that's what it is. The last few things I need to do is put some sealant on the other case, bolt it back up, let the sealant sit, put the gear shift selector in, and we're all good to go. That's going to be the end of that. So that's how you put a Wavetrac in the transmission of a O2Q transmission. I hope you like that. I know it was a long video, and it was a long process for us, not gonna lie, but we got it done, and I'm glad it's finally over with, and we're gonna get it locked into the car. Got the engine on the hoist all ready to go inside the car right here. Yeah, it's gonna be great. That's gonna be the end of this video for the Wavetrac LSD. I'll see you guys on the next video. Until next time, peace.